Thank you guys so much for coming. I want to thank Zenmen, Bacon, BW Bacon, Proctor Productions, and of course Pivotal for joining us today. Zenmen also for the food provided by Salt and Grinder. If you guys have not been there yet, it's amazing. Banano Concepts is one of our awesome clients, and Dave Bacon and his team for the beer. Yay. Just to make sure you're in the right place, you are at Denver Startup Week panel, how to find and keep developer talent in Colorado. If you're in the wrong place, I highly recommend you stay anyway. Behind me, I'm going to move out of the way so you can see them. We have our four wonderful panelists. We have Christopher Montigne. I practiced saying your name. He is the creative director at Proctor, which is a creative design and fabrication company in Denver. He's an alumni of the Art Institute of Colorado's Industrial Design Program and is a champion for being passionate about what you do, exercising a strong work ethic, and maintaining creativity. Next, yay, welcome Christopher. Chris. Next, we have our fearless leader at Zenmen, Keith Roberts. I don't actually need his bullet points, but I'm going to read them because I'm nervous. A thought leader in the industry, he utilizes his vast experience in the field to help clients reach their maximum potential. Keith has an incredible eye for talent, which is why he has managed to successfully build a team of passionate, driven people to help carry out the Zenmen mission. He cares more than anyone I know about his clients, and success for them is a reflection of our own success. Yay, Keith Roberts. Next, we have Dave Bacon. He did not provide me any bullet points, so I'm going to wing it. If you do not know Dave Bacon, you should. He is the premier recruiting agency in Denver for developers, tech. You can fill in your blanks here, creative. He does it all. He's awesome. And then last but not least, we have Brian Rose. I'm going to try. Brian has been writing code for nearly 20 years and has built and led web and mobile development teams for the past 7 years. Since last year, he's been building a local team as director for Pivotal Labs here in Denver. He's worked with local startups, including SendGrid, Show Mobile, and Athen, as well as brands including the North Face, Audi, and Beam Incorporated. Jim Beam. There you go. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm just the random blonde girl up here. I am Caitlyn Fagan. I am the director of operations at Zenmen. I was not supposed to be moderator today. We had a last-minute cancellation. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. Will McCullum from Uber. So I am standing in for him, and we are going to do our best. Fortunately, we have four amazing people here, and they're going to carry the conversation. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to not die. Okay. So basically, we have four super innovative, very dynamic individuals here. The topic is how to hire and keep developer talent in Colorado in general. So let's just chat. Let's talk about it. What's your process for hiring, if you have one? Keith, it's you.
These work?
Yeah, yes? Yes. Our process is pretty methodical, actually. It's twofold. One, if we're looking for a specific role, then we'll place job postings. And the interview process is actually through the peers and the people that you're going to be working with. You're going to interview with our lead developer. You're going to interview with Caitlyn. You're going to interview with our COO, Josh. Basically, the people are going to have to deal with you and put up with you and see if it's a cultural fit. By the time I actually sit down to interview with you, and hopefully nobody that's interviewing with me soon is hearing this, but you've already got the job. If you make it to the time that I'm interviewing with you, it's so we can give you an offer right then and there, once we've identified the talent. The other part of that is if we find a truly A player, we'll just hire them. And we have a couple people right now on our staff that they were the right people. We didn't have the right fit, but we pulled the trigger because we knew we could sell into that.
Can you hear me? Nope. Already?
Good? All right. So at Pivotal, we have a pretty interesting interview process where we do sort of two phases of interviews. The first one is a pairing interview with me in my office or the office director in any of our offices across the country, where we sit for an hour with a candidate and we actually do pair programming live. Usually people walk in blind, have no idea what they're walking into, and we just get right to it. So that's always interesting because we get to see how people react to just being thrown into programming with the guy who will be their boss if they get hired, which is an interesting situation. If they get through that, which happens maybe 10-20% of the time usually, it's a pretty rigorous hour-long interview. We then move into something called our pairing interview, where they come in for a whole day, spend time with 3 members of our team, actually pair programming, and we take them out to lunch. And for that, we're really screening for culture more than we're screening for technical chops. I mean, technical stuff is interesting, not nearly as interesting as the cultural aspect. So that's really what we're about is, 90% culture, 10% tech.
So with us, when I'm speaking about process and things such as that, I speak on behalf of our clients. So when you're asked what is our process for hiring, one of the things that comes to mind is that in the absence of a process with a client, they run into a lot of issues where really grade A talent expects to be heavily qualified. They expect to be vetted. They expect to submit code reviews or code samples, or they expect to have their GitHub reviewed and evaluated. And in the absence of that, or in the absence of a process that like Brian stated, when we talked before, one of the things you had said was that every single person that's ever been hired by Pivotal Labs goes through the exact same test, right?
Yeah, if you're technical. So I was hired as director of my office. I had already worked with the guy who was going to be my boss for years at that point as a client. He still put me through the test. I still had to do everything everyone always goes through.
But that consistency of every single person that's ever been hired to your company has gone through that specific test. So that speaks, I think, volumes to something that once on board, everyone has that common thread. They've all been through that. So I think that maybe through today, if we're trying to make this as meaningful as possible, we can help share some stories about process. But I think just having one period instead of winging it. A lot of startups will sort of wing it, and they're like, let's do a phone interview, or let's bring them in, or it just doesn't reflect. It doesn't reflect as well on the people that you're most trying to attract if it's ambiguous. So a process itself is key.
I'll throw out there that I care more about the people involved in the interview process, my employees, my colleagues, what they say, more than what I feel myself. I mean, sometimes I go off gut feel when we can't really make a decision, but usually it's more about what my employees think of the person, not so much what I think.
Sounds like Keith's the same way. Chris?
At Proctor, we do, our developer influence is a little different. We do creative design and fabrication, but we're still looking for people that are inherently creative and have something to contribute to a team. So our hiring process is more rigorous than a different position at Proctor, where we're interested in the person's creative contribution individually and how they're going to contribute on a team, and most importantly, if they can tell a good story. So being able to tell a story in a compelling way that is either through a design or a project or whatever the medium is, that is key to selling the work that we do to our clients, because that's what they're asking for from us. So our interview process, we start with 2 design interviews that are going to be individually with me, and then we bring the person in and have them integrate in an interview with our team and the people they're going to be directly working with. And then similar to you, final interview, they sit and meet with our president, who has an open door policy, and he's in just about everybody's interview because our company is, like everyone else, is pretty cultural. So they need to meet with Leo and sit down and figure out if this is going to be a good fit. But another thing that we do, lastly, is we send them home with a test project. So we take an existing project that we have done for a client, reformulate it a little bit and simplify some of the parameters, but give them a task and a design challenge that then they have a week to do. They can go home and in between interviews see what they can do and produce on their own that then they bring back to us because we have done it one way and we want to see how someone else is going to do it a different way. But that's kind of a tangible part of our process that they do it outside of house and then come back in for their interview and follow up. But
So it sounds like for you guys, you have kind of this shared vein of competence and culture being super important. But I think, at least at Zedman, I know we've been in this situation, perhaps some of you. What about when you have urgent hiring needs? Is there one that kind of emerges more, that competence part or that culture part that you sort of look for more when you have these urgent needs?
I'll take that.
Okay. Take it away.
We care way more about culture. So I will happily hire someone who is a little more junior on the tech side, who seems to just really jive with the rest of the staff, versus hiring someone who's, a genius, but no one can talk to. It's way more important to me that we can integrate them into the team. They're going to ramp up really quickly if they become friends with the folks on the team, and we've seen that time and time again.
Keith, I know you have something to say about this.
Slow to hire, quick to fire. It's a pretty standard saying. If you have a critical need, I mean, Dave can attest to this because he's placed some rock stars that we have in the third row there, and there were a lot of candidates that got sent over in finding those rock stars, and very qualified candidates that had the development chops where we needed, but weren't a cultural fit. One of our best developers, Kelly, who's sitting up there, it was a letter actually that convinced me she wasn't local. She wanted to move down here. And she sent me a letter as to why she would be the best hire, what she would add to my company. And that was it. I called Dave and said, make it happen. Kelly's the one. So culture is absolutely critical.
we recently went through a design team member hiring process where I interviewed and Leo interviewed with me 17 individual people for the one position that we were trying to fill, and it was a quick need. So a team member resigned, moved on to much better things for all the right reasons, but we did need to fill that gap creatively for the contribution pretty quickly. But we weren't going to rush it, and we actually had some overqualified candidates that would have been interviewing for my position almost, and we ended up hiring a student-level person that just had the passion, was persistent in communicating with me, and had that sponge-level mind still that wasn't jaded by the industry, was able to check their cool at the door and not worry about an ego that was coming into the door that we would have to kind of introduce or reintegrate and figure out how to handle this person. But yeah, if you rush it, we've fixed quick fixes. We've had to fix leaks that were because of a quick fix before.
I think one of the things that I was just thinking, hearing you guys too, is we've noticed a lot more of our clients are much more receptive to a wider range of years experience for, in exchange for team fit, culture. And I think that reflects really well on them in terms of being nimble enough to hire someone who maybe isn't, this senior Ruby on Rails developer, maybe is a little more junior, and then within the team, they can kind of reassign roles or have a certain leveling to account for someone who just is clearly a really good fit, who brings a certain positive energy and just contributes to the team in other ways. So I've just seen a lot more clients that are more receptive to whether it's salary range or years experience in order to build the right team fit.
So it sounds like culture wins. Perfect. So ideally, you have this, slow to hire, quick to fire mentality, and we all hope that you hire correctly the first time. But I think you have sort of touched on this a little bit. When do you know that it's time to let go? Done. How do you get to the quick to fire spot?
One thing that really helped me was becoming a dad, because at one time it took me a year to fire somebody that our COO told me we need to get rid of this person, and I'm way too nice. And when I had Gavin and Quinn, I was actually able to look at another week of this guy's salary is Quinn's college fund. Do I really need to drag this out, or do I just rip the Band-Aid right off and deal with it? So now when I make a decision, I do it that day. So I usually try to give myself time to weigh it. If it gets to the point that I'm making the decision is probably that I'm going to fire somebody. We have the best team for what we do. Pivotal has the best team for what you guys do, and I would, hands down. But if we do have somebody we have to fire, I deal with that very quickly, because in a creative environment, in a culture like we have, and our company is very much like a family, negativity is like a cancer, and that cancer can spread pretty quickly. We have a kick-ass office. We have an amazing culture. We have fun every single day. Everybody loves coming to work on Monday. But if you've got somebody that just shouldn't be there, that cancer can spread, and they could spread to great employees that you're now going to have to cut out. So when that cancer emerges, you get rid of it.
This is interesting. I mean, the flip side of this is hire fast, fire fast. But when we talk about culture, I think that assumes that people know what their culture is. And I actually contend that a lot of our clients don't really actually know what their culture is. When asked or probed further what it is, it's, we're startup, and, we're flex. And, we can, does that really define your culture? I mean, we could open that up for an entirely different panel, I think. But, I think it's imperative that clients can speak to what their culture is with absolutes or with specifics, or with much, with more sincerity than just, we're a startup with a ping pong table. And while those things are maybe true, does that really define you when you're facing adverse client deadlines, and how it is that you rally together as a team? Or what sort of legends do all of you adore? And doesn't that create a common thread within your culture? Or what sort of obstacles have you guys as a team overcome when all else was lost? Those kinds of things. Whatever those are, those to me define culture a lot more than just either your physical space or benefits, So I just want to make sure that as we, explore that we explore that too.
If you're going to hire for culture, know what your
culture is, right? Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would echo everything Keith said. We're in sort of an interesting spot at Pivotal. For those who don't know, we're a consulting company, build software for our clients. But we do an interesting thing where we usually match up our developers with an equal number of our clients' developers, and they come into our office and work. And we go as far sometimes as having to ask a client to pull back on someone being in our office every day, because they are affecting our culture. We'll go that far if we have to. It's paramount that we maintain the culture we have within our office, because it's really what makes us as effective for our clients as we are.
I don't want to talk too much, moderator, so pass it around. We will fire a client if you are abusive to our staff. I don't care how much money that puts in the bottom line. The staff is the most important thing. I was at one of Jacqueline Bonanno's talks yesterday. She mentioned the same thing. She'll gladly get 6 negative Yelp reviews and tell a table to leave if they're being abusive to staff, and they've done it. And we will do the same thing. Insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We just don't do that.
On that same note, and it's interesting, I think you started asking, how do you know when to terminate? We've terminated a number of clients, and I know looking around the room, my team is shaking their head too. For one, we're in that good position where we can, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a contentious thing, but when we have a situation where we advocate not only a client's business model to a highly sought after resource and encourage them to consider that job change, and then bring them over there, and then when they show up there in either, and in this lack of absence void, or this absence of process void, if our candidates show up and people don't know who they are, they're just going to be shuffled around ambiguously, or if they get in their own way of hiring, and we're not afraid to fire them in a heartbeat. And I think that they really struggle finding resources. So sometimes we don't know that as much as one might know how someone is a cultural fit until they hire them. So sometimes we don't, how much do we really know? Sometimes we don't really know if a client is a perfect fit for us either until we start working with them and seeing how well they really can attract the best people.
I think something I heard you guys discussing the other day, or something that at least came up. So and to get back to my point of when do you know to fire, after that firing occurs, is there, some sort of responsibility on the team? Is there the fault of the manager or the fault of, in Zedman's case, it's our whole team that interviews basically the candidate. Where do we blame? Where does the buck kind of stop, or who gets that responsibility?
So we don't really lay blame. If anything, I'll take full responsibility for it, right? But it really is my entire team who hired that person. By the time they actually get hired, our recruiters, myself, often my boss, and at least 5 or 6 people from my team have spent over an hour or 2 with this person to get to know them a little bit. So if they've managed to get through all of us and we still hired them and it was a mishire, we'll do a retrospective. We'll sit down and try to digest how did we get here in the first place, and then make sure we don't make those same mistakes in the future.
Chris?
It could kind of go 2 ways. It's unlikely that the applicant or the hire was intentionally deceitful and then was selling a picture of themselves that, you didn't really know until you got them in the chair. That could be one way, but if it is someone that's eliminated, it would fall. Proctor's a pretty small company. We have very few managers. It would be my responsibility after going through the process just to say, we all met with this person, but it was my call. So next time I'm going to try to make a better call, but hopefully it doesn't happen.
Dave, you don't take it. You place people all the time.
Well, I mean, I think I take 100% accountability for anything we do. In our world, we're only as good as our last placement. We could place 10 great placements, and then the next one doesn't work out, and that's freshest in our client's memory, oftentimes. I mean, there's a lot of other good recruiters in the room here as well, and most of us have a contingency-based model. So we have a certain guarantee on our placement where, I hate to use it as a crutch or encourage our clients to leverage it necessarily, but they should. They pay us a fee, and that fee is secured by a guarantee, whereby if that person does not work out, they should get rid of them within that time period. So, I mean, it's an obligation that we all in our industry anyway have to be sincere about owning up to, because to think that every placement is just this raw placement, it's not possible to have a 100% success rate in our space. And largely anyway, we're defined by, the testament of our relationships is based on how it is that we come back from those bad placements, actually more so than it is those 10 great placements before.
Firing somebody really sucks. Just the process of doing it is horrible. So I don't enjoy doing it, but it's my obligation if it gets to that point. It was my staff that hired that person, so I owe it to them to not pawn off the conversation with them as to why it didn't work out. So again, similar to Pivotal, and I think everybody here, there is no blame. We collectively tried. It wasn't a good fit. It happens, but I'm the one that has to have the hard conversations.
Really quickly, the hardest ones are always when you have to let someone go because they're not fitting into your team, but they're a great person and you wish that you could keep them. Those are the worst. I've dealt with a couple of those in my career, and in those situations, I take full responsibility because I should have seen they weren't a good fit from the beginning and found the right job for them. The number of times have you guys dealt with, like, you hired somebody and it didn't work out, so you helped them find another job?
I just had this call today with a client, and that made me think of it. And to their credit, it reflects super well on them that they let us know that they're going to be needing to lay some people off who are good people, and they wanted us to start getting our wheels turning about them. So, I mean, it's kind of a reverse outsourcing where we can help them, which is good for us too.
Culture as well. Yes, let's talk about getting hired. So obviously culture is paramount here, which is great. So the talk is about finding and retaining developer talent. So let's talk about the retaining awesome people. I know all of you have something to say about this. So Brian, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So We do a lot to retain our people. So as a startup, one, you probably don't have the resources that a lot of bigger companies do, right? Two, you're competing with Google and Facebook in terms of perks, which is really hard in some cases. So you really have to find ways to make it work for the people you're employing when you can't provide things like twice the going salary or something like that, like Google does. So in those cases, the best way to do it is to find ways to help those employees really get more out of their job than what they thought they could when they came in the door. So I focus really, really heavily on career development, more than anyone I really have experience with in my past. Something I was missing when I was coming up as a developer was, how do I go from here to where I want to be? And that's usually the first thing I talk about with someone I hire on day one is, where do you want to go while you're here? I know you just started, but really, where do you want to go, and how are we going to get you there? And I try to give them the hands-on time that a lot of bigger companies can't.
You brought up retrospectives earlier. And so, at least within our company, we're an agile shop. We're not a development shop. So we've incorporated agile into our methodology. It's like agile recruitment. But the point is around the retrospective and the idea of having meetings where we can courageously and openly, these are all tenets of agile, and they're part of our culture, but where we can talk about the things that went right during our sprint cycle. In our world, it's a 1-week sprint cycle. Kind of a mad, sad, glad, or a rosebud thorn, or a powder groom run, or ice day, or something where we can really look at the things and say, this was awesome about this week. And this was not so awesome. And guess what? This has actually been not so awesome for 4 weeks in a row. Why are we doing this? This is wasteful. And at least for us, I think we don't have an attrition issue, but I think that goes a long way towards our retention. And I think that clients that follow that type of that have that kind of a process where people can openly share both their concerns as well as their victories, and also things they really look forward to. I think that's a huge way to retain people and engage them.
I have 3 points, and I'll go really quickly through them. If you have not read Daniel Pink's book on motivation, you should read that as to how to motivate your employees. Money is not, if people are doing anything that requires cognitive skills, money is actually a demotivator. Pay your people enough that money doesn't matter, that they make enough and they make a good salary, but we pride the culture. Our office is in the back. We've got scooter races. We've got pinball machines. After 5 o'clock, the guys are having happy hour and they're playing FIFA tournaments upstairs. We have a couple guys, we never ask people to work overtime unless it's a very extreme case. And in that extreme case, we're actually going to be billing the client time and a half for this rush. So I will always incentivize our staff, not with money, but with something that's really personal and cool. I've bought developers, or creatives, not developers, zombie apocalypse swords. I bought people stuff for their motorcycles, personal things. Hani worked on a project and she got flagstone in her backyard. She actually did the work. I gave her money. But for the most part, it's something personal. It's not a check, right, that's just gone and they don't remember it. When Daniel pulls out his zombie apocalypse sword for his buddies, and they're like, your fucking boss bought you that? Seriously? Everybody works at our shop. So, understanding and having that relationship and actually knowing the people that you work with, to me.
It's hard because if people are looking for a job, they're looking for employment because they have direct, immediate needs in their life to meet, just as a person that's trying to live. How to get one thing that incentivizes people to stay. Colorado's a pretty good selling tool. If you have a business here, this is a great lifestyle state, and a lot of people are looking to come here for that. At Proctor, for us, we try to present the employee or the hire or applicant, I should say, at the very beginning, like what they're getting into, what they're going to be joining, what they're going to become part of. It's a lot bigger than just them, and the resources that Proctor has that they are then free to use at their discretion based on their needs. Like, people use the truck to move, the big Proctor truck. You come in and fabricate anything you want in the shop. We just have a lot of things that are a lot there are more things to Proctor than just that person's job that's going to become part of their life when they join our team. So we try to make that very clear during our hiring processes. This is what you're getting into. This is what you're going to become part of. And hopefully at that stage, we want you to become part of that. And like the pay, like you said, money's not the only reason people stay. I mean, people stay because they want to stay. Ultimately, people want to become part of something that's valuable and meaningful, and that's what we try to get across at the same time.
I'd be curious if anyone has any other retention ideas out there. Just anyone who owns a company or is in a leadership role. Anyone? No? No? Come on. Greg? No? Alice? Yeah. Seriously.
When you talk about culture, getting your people together, is this a culture fit or not? There are companies that actually try to quantify it and say, like, our culture is this list of things. One, we're a family. Two, work is fun with a purpose, whatever. Like, this list of things, and they put them up on the wall, and people go like, maybe. How do you quantify, like, when you get two people together after your pairing exercise and say, yeah, that's a fit? Is it, they do some of the same things together? Or is there a list you can come up with that kind of helps you get to that point?
So our number one thing is, after I spend the day with them, right, would I bring this person home to my significant other and have dinner with them? Would I be willing to do that? Would I subject my family to this person, right? Would I think that they would want...
Subject.
No. I say that, but I mean, you truly are. Like, you are putting this person into your family's lives, right? And you are saying, you have to spend the next couple hours with them because this is for my work. You can't say anything mean. This is what we're doing, right? So if you can get through that, if you can just think, yeah, I would bring this person home for dinner, no problem. After only spending a couple hours with them, they're probably a good fit for you personally, right? As far as company culture goes, you have to be very careful quantifying it. For example, I worked at a company where part of the company culture was you participate in action sports. So I don't ski or snowboard, right? That's not something I'm into. However, one of the clients was a car company. Well, that's not an action sport company, but I really like cars. So why wouldn't it make sense for me to be employed here? So sometimes culture fit is more about, do they have an interest in the business, not so much do they participate actively in what you do. That's an important thing, I think.
The Zenman team like zombies, and they scare me. So, again, it's kind of a requirement to like zombies if you work at Zenman, but it works out if you don't.
I've heard more than one client call what you referred to, Brian, in subjecting them to your family as the I-70 traffic jam test. Like, can I sit next to this person when, I just want to rip my steering wheel off and actually find some inspiration there and some joy and something spontaneous, because we're stuck. So where's this going to go?
Yeah, we also...
I don't know if you can quantify that, except for 3 hours to get to Loveland Pass. So there's...
We're also fortunate enough to be in a shared space like this, and we have some of our clients in our office with us. So we will, after the interview, grab the candidate and grab some of our clients and have a beer with them. And if we're able to put this person in front of a client and they can really hack it, they can have a conversation and keep it going, they're probably a good fit.
I'd add to that, I think the company size directly relates to whether you can quantify it or not. If it's small, very few people, it's going to be something that's dynamic and evolves and grows over time. And as you get into hundreds of employees, there needs to be some kind of metric where it's like you just come to work and whatever you want and you do whatever you want. It's just madness. I think that is part of, on a larger scale, regulating what that is. But on a smaller scale, it's probably a lot more freestyle.
I think it's interesting that there's a number of assessment tools that are available, a number of companies that have very good tools that are even represented here in Denver Startup Week, and I haven't quite seen a wide adoption of them. But when I think of quantification or something like that, sort of a Venn diagram of various types of elements within someone, and and how they fit within your team, it's interesting how few companies we actually have use them. When I would think they would be more widely adopted. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that, because there's some really, really good tools out there that I don't know if companies are slow to adopt them, or if they feel that gets in the way of hiring, or if they've, if the candidate pool feels like, I'm not taking a test. But, it's interesting that we don't have very many that do it.
We developed our own. That
You
1
developed
hour,
your own?
That 1 hour test is that for us. It's a standardized assessment, right?
But do you assign numbers to it? Like,
Yeah, it's scored out of 100 points.
Okay. But it's the scores are it's kind of like, scoring an ice skater or a snowboarder. Is that right? No.
No.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I asked, because I would have thought.
For that, it's truly, I sit down with someone and we program, and I kind of watch their progress, and it's more about how they think, right?
Yep.
And based on that, I assign a score.
But it's your opinion of the score. Yeah. Which
yes, but
is good. I'm not
it's standardized.
contesting that.
Yeah.
I'm just okay. But since you do it every time, it's gonna.
Yeah, there's a baseline.
Right. The baseline is there. Right.
Keith, do you have a litmus test for that? You don't have to. It's fine.
A litmus test. If you make it to my office,
quantifying.
you have a job. But that's not, that's not very many people, in all honesty. We do try to cultivate young talent. Some of our management team actually came up through an internship program. We probably hire 1 out of 20 people that go through our internship program. They'll do a 3-month non-paid internship. If they're good, we'll bring them on. We've got a couple guys that were making pizza while they were going through school. They interned. They quit their pizza job. I started paying them part-time. They got agency experience, and then when they graduated, we snagged them up. Another huge benefit that I have is the people that we have. We just brought somebody on that we weren't necessarily looking for a developer, but somebody that came through our internship program, Thad, who's sitting up there, and when his internship program was completed, he actually didn't leave the day it was over. He stayed and kept coming to work, and our lead developer, Dom, came to us and said, "That's really good, you better hire him." So we did. Pretty much immediately, I think that day, we sat down and said, okay, Dad graduated, his internship's over, he's probably getting offers from other places, and he was, but he wanted to work at Zenman, I think this is right, because of the culture, but it was because of our lead developer identifying that talent that we snagged him up before he even entered the workforce and realized how good he has it at Zenman.
Here's another example. Using SendGrid is obviously a super prominent company here in town, and that's highly sought after. And they have their 4 H's. And forgive me if I say them wrong. If anyone's in the room, correct me. But I believe it's humble, healthy, happy, and hungry. Is that right? If I'm wrong, if anyone in the room wants to correct me, please do. But they interview based on those 4 H's too. In a similar way, where that baseline's created, they can assess, there's just no desire there, no ambition, it's super low hungry score, not going to fit into our environment. Healthy can be unfolded in many different ways, whether it's physical or mental health or pursuits of outside activities, things like that. So that's another, that ties into their company values and their cultures and their interview and hiring and their retention. They're very good at doing all those.
I definitely want to open this up for questions. You have 4 incredible storytellers here that have a lot of I want to keep saying success, but experience and success at hiring and keeping talent. Before I open it up for questions, I want each of you to kind of give your succinct advice, how, 1 sentence, how I hire and keep talent in my company. Go.
I treat my employees the way I wanted to be treated when I was in their spot. So every time I have a one-on-one with someone, which, by the way, if you're not having one-on-ones, you should be doing. Whenever we have a one-on-one, I very clearly think about what I would have wanted when I was them and try to get that out of them.
I think be authentic. Be authentic.
Period. That was succinct.
like a haiku.
Thank you.
Nice.
Sentence. Succinct. Yeah.
We give our staff autonomy. We let them make the decisions, and I back the decisions. That's the best thing. I know Josh is up there probably saying that's bullshit, but he's my number 2, and I'm trying very hard to always back his decisions, but he's the one closest to me. But everybody else, it's kind of amazing. Actually, there's lots of times I'll be making the wrong decision for the company because I give too much stuff away to clients. Artists tend to do that. You just want people to be happy and give stuff away. So they'll just send me in my office to play pinball and say, all right, this is what we're going to do, just so you know.
I uninvite Keith to meetings often.
I would say that passion is the primary thing that we're looking for, and the ability to express what is in your head creatively as far as a contribution in a passionate way and tell a story, because no one's going to know what's going on in your head if you don't tell them. And if you do tell someone, it's like, this is a terrible example, but like when Avatar came out and everybody's like, it's Dances with Wolves in space, and everybody had such a problem with the movie. But it was the same. No, it's not an innovative story. Everybody's heard it 1,000 times, but the way it was told, you can be told the same story 30 times, but the one person that tells it to you in the compelling way and has everybody just captivated, that is successful storytelling. So I guess passion and the ability to tell a story is what we're looking for.
Well said.
I told you Avatar was a terrible
Avatar, I love it. Okay, questions. Please feel free. They literally will answer anything. So
Yeah, I'd love to hear like problems that people are having too, like genuine
negative.
issues. No, not like problems like say, hey, you know, we've got this thing going on, or how can we do this? I don't know.
Hi. Introduce yourself. There you go.
Hello, I'm Steve. My question has to do with for an early stage startup. Can you talk about actually different avenues to find potential recruits? Limited funds, you know, beyond, well, recruiters obviously one avenue, but beyond that, kind of a little more, you know, before there's much money for that, LinkedIn, colleges, some paths, and
Are you looking more for sort of a like tech lead or just like development talent in general?
in general, I think that I agree with everything I've heard today, really, you know, especially culture fit and a lot of things like that. But I think also there's, when you're getting started, you know, if someone's going to be on board, you also try to find a place for that person. So yes and yes.
Okay. So,
We're all eager to answer. Go.
okay, so two quick things. One is there's a lot of really great incubator type schools out there right now where they're incubating developers who are coming from a different background. Some examples are like G School and what are some, you guys know some others along those lines?
G School's first thing.
Yeah, G School's our local one that's great. Yep, Turing as well, Turing
yeah,
Academy.
yeah.
So
What's that? Refactor U. Seed
there's a
paths,
lot of them, right?
For sure.
So the key about all those programs is that they are putting out developers pretty often. And if you go talk to the instructors, the people running those classes, they are almost always looking for people to come in and just talk with people about what it's like to work at a startup, what they need, and hopefully you can get a hire out of that. Honestly, you know, I'm in the same building as G School, and those guys get snatched up really fast, but they're not all going to the big names. A lot of them are going to small startups. Beyond that, go to meetups. Just go to every meetup that you can find related to technology in this city. Go to the ones in Boulder, go to the ones in Fort Collins, because someone there needs a job, I promise you. They may not be the most advanced person, but there's people who are looking, and they're going to be able to get some code written for you.
Great, thank you.
I think we get approached by a lot of what you might call ground floor startups as well. And I mean, the really good developers are all developers, designers, I mean, and in Colorado and in Denver, Boulder, they're getting tantalized and pitched so heavily. And so I think that a lot of, especially more ground floor companies where no one's heard of what you're doing, I know I just said be authentic, but be authentic, like to sort of build up all this pomp and circumstance about what it could be, or there's going to be this huge equity piece. Like, I think if you keep talking to people, sooner or later, someone's going to identify with what you're doing. And that's super important in terms of having a causal effect, as much as I might have a causal connection with a nonprofit that I support. You know, most developers, I mean, someone who has affinity towards a healthcare startup might have general desires to support wellness, you know, or someone within security just loves, you know, data security or something, or a financial startup. They come from a certain background that supports that. So I think when you are looking to people, strike someone and appeal to that inner constitution that you can help, sort of unfold through whatever void you're trying to fill with your startup. That was like a really long run-on sentence.
Really
Hopefully
long.
That made sense.
The one thing that I would look at it is not the sticker price. We just hired a new creative director. Again, one of those roles where he was the right person. We didn't necessarily have the need, but we'll sell into that position. Mike Baranek made a really good analogy a couple years ago when I was on a pitch on a project we did with Pivotal. I'm not going to say, but a pair is a significant amount for a month. And some people might have sticker shock to that. I could pay a developer for a year for that. And the reality is, the developer you're going to get for a year isn't going to produce what those two guys do in 2 weeks. So the dollar amount, you have to correlate, like, what's the value that I'm getting for what I'm paying? Because I can take you to dinner right now at McDonald's, it's been $4 and you'll be full. And I could take you to Mizuna and we can drop $1,000 and have a couple beautiful Bordeaux's and a beautiful evening, and it's a very different experience, and it's still one meal. So invest in talent. Every time I've ever chanced on talent, it's bitten me in the ass. Every time I've invested in a rock star, they hit grand slams for me. So invest in talent.
Keith, you have a good quote on that. If you think hiring a designer is
Yeah.
expensive,
If you think hiring a designer or a developer is expensive, try hiring an amateur, because it's way more expensive. There's somebody sitting in the rafters that didn't hire us for a development project, that hired us for a UI project. I'm gonna tell this story, Ollie. And it wasn't his fault. He works for government, and he had to put an RFP. So they hire us for this project. I think it was maybe $30,000, $40,000 to do the UI UX work. It was going to be maybe $80,000 for us to build the software. A couple guys in the Pacific Northwest said they could do it for $5,000. They spent probably $100,000 to $150,000 on these guys that never delivered software. So, yeah.
Well, we could help you right
Sorry,
here.
Ollie.
What's your company? What are you hiring?
I'm not hiring yet.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah, right now it's really, there's no money yet for filming, so it's equity and it's a dream. And I have been going to meetups, blind LinkedIn messages.
Yep.
I chose the person because LinkedIn, I probably have about a way less than 1%. Reply
Sure.
rate with that. I think people are getting
try builtincolorado.com as well. Built-in Colorado. It's a free site.
From talking to developers,
Yep.
the average developer in the Denver market right now who's on LinkedIn gets between 10 and 20 recruiting messages a week. So at some point, that's just not a good avenue to go down. One-on-one contact is way better in my opinion, and being early stage, like that early stage, get people jazzed about what you want to do. Don't worry about the equity part and the pay part. Like, if they are excited about your company, you'll figure all that out,
Yep.
right? Just work on getting people so excited about what you're planning to do that when you finally say, I'm ready to hire a developer, you've got 5 people who are like, I want to work on this.
It's hard when a student is graduating and they have an enormous amount of loans that they have to handle, but we look for a very specific skill set and specific programs that we're trying to get people out of, but we go to all the local schools and go to their career services program or department, because the staffed people at the educational institution are there to help graduates find placement, and they have lists of students that tell them exactly what you're looking for, and they might give you something, but that's what we do. We go to the career services.
I told you these guys have a lot of knowledge. That was only one question.
Not everyone needs the money. Not everyone needs the money, too. You may well
Yes.
find people who just want to do the work.
Those are out there.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I'm an internal recruiter for Comcast's startup division out here, Comcast Viper. And one of the things that I'm kind of struggling with, and my guys are great, so I mean, I'm not like downplaying them at all, but because it's a small team, and I'm sure you guys have had small teams before you've gotten larger, you're constantly busy with projects and meetings and going to visit here, there, and everywhere that you just don't have time, right, for the process. to happen. And so for a recruiter, it gets a little frustrating to get your folks locked down, to be available for interviews, and the time for that, and to actually be engaged in the process. So saying, hey, I need you to go to a DJUG because I don't know what they're going to be talking about there, but you do, so I need you to kind of like do stuff like that. So my question to you guys is, you know, how are you holding your hiring managers to be accountable and engaged in the process?
I'm the hiring manager and I care a lot about the process. So that's a hard one for me to answer directly. I can tell you from being at bigger companies in the past, the biggest thing is if you get people on the team feeling like it's an opportunity to find a new colleague they're going to love working with versus just we're recruiting, you're going to get a lot more, you're going to have more success in convincing them to spend time with these people. Sometimes that may involve more upfront screening of applicants so that you know some of their interests and stuff, and you can try to find the right developer on your team because you know that guy likes rock climbing, so let's find one of our developers who likes rock climbing and find some opportunity there for them to talk. It's definitely a hard one though. I don't have a great solution. You guys?
I mean, it's interesting because we talked about process right out of the gate, and here you're asking a process question, and it occurred to me now how, like, when we're working with an internal HR group, how critical it is to complement them, not to usurp them, but also to really move the needle, because these developers getting 10 to 20 LinkedIn pings, or once they start considering moving, the wheels are in motion. Like if they are starting to look, and the pressure can be on you to strike while the iron's hot, but then you've got to weigh that, like, I'm not just going to hire someone and compromise our own process. So, internally, I can't profess to say what you do or how closely you work with the hiring managers, but, you've got to make sure that they are aware that this market is super tight, and it's incumbent upon them to provide you not only feedback as to why they don't hire someone or why they do, but also they got to keep the needle moving. They've got to make time for their interviews. They can't reschedule people because they're just going to lose them. Interest will wane so fast with the people you most want. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I mean, boy.
How do you do it without, being too pushy, right? I mean, I can go visit every single hiring manager saying, accept that interview. I need to go to this.
You're going to lose them.
Yeah.
Those words. They're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
He does it all the time. I'm a very busy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, as leaders in your organization too, what are you saying to your folks? Are you saying this?
It's almost, I like how Brian took, it's an opportunity for you to grow your team with someone you really want to work with. It's the same thing as like, we got to get someone in here. It's a different way of saying it, but it appeals to something different. I don't know, it's our job to be professionally pushy, to be pestering, but it's with intention, because otherwise we can't execute. I mean, how can you execute without being, it's not being pushy, it's executing on hiring. Just wasting your time.
Smaller environment, because I work in very large organizations. This is a team of 50, right? And so they have to see me every day, and I'm like, come on, guys, you got to do this. So you want to do it in a way that's not a pain in the ass, but that it gets through.
Just deprioritize them.
So
You're
last,
not going to work with me.
I'll-
I'm working on these orders.
what we do is we directly incentivize hiring managers. So if they have a mandate to grow their team, build that into their incentives as an employment structure. It's pretty effective.
I was going to say open and honesty. So we have a lot of transparency at Zenman. Everybody knows what's on our backlog, what do we have in sales, what do we have coming through, what kind of year are we having. So just be honest with them and say, hey, this person really is a rock star. If you don't want to meet with them, that's great. We're going to lose them. Just want to let you know. Atomic truth. Just be honest.
Atomic truth, yeah. That's great. Yeah.
Do we have some more questions? I'm going to try and broaden my horizons here.
We don't all have to
Yes.
answer every question, I guess, but
Yes, we have a few more minutes.
Hi, I wanted to ask about the Denver market. Are you finding that the talent pool is still strong in Denver, or are you having to look outside?
we're pulling a bunch of people, like a lot of people from out of state into Colorado. It's a huge part of our content strategy in terms of being, I mean, having the sunshine and the mountains and all these amazing companies is the foundation. But for us anyway, we want to be one of the foremost companies that people come to when they want to find a job here. But we're moving probably 2 people a month in from out of state, and we're a small company. We probably hire 5 people a week to our clients or something. But that's a considerable amount. A lot of people are moving here. I mean, yeah.
So those G School-like programs, Turing, all those, they inject a lot of people into the Denver market in terms of young developer talent every couple months on average. Other than that, my last few hires are from Boise and Raleigh. So yeah, we're pulling a lot of people in.
Yeah, we have to. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more. Do we have another question? Oh, maybe 2 more then.
Hi, I have a question. So my company was, we started and we were lucky to get a substantial amount of friends and family to get going. And the company itself was basically built by more tech-savvy, entertainment-oriented folks, but none of us coded, so we outsourced a lot of our development for things like our iPhone app and for building on the website and the widgets, et cetera. And now we're kind of at that point where we're probably ready to go for an A round, and we want to try to maybe transition from the outsourced development team to more in-house folks that can really, that aren't just always working on ticketing items, but more focused on building the product and growing as a team. And I was curious if you had any advice on that part of the process, like getting ready to try to scale something and around an A-round developer versus, the beginning of a startup scenario.
Brian, you should have a lot. I mean, Brian's going to have a lot of thoughts on that because that's the position he's in.
Yeah, I do this with every single one of our clients. So we don't really view ourselves as being outsourced to. So the biggest thing is we do work for our clients, embedded with our clients' team. Usually they're embedded at our location, actually. And as they start hiring, we will take, say we have a team of 6 people working on their project, we'll take one of our folks off and put their new developer in their spot, and then they get up to speed with our team. We did this with a company called Athens over the past, I think we basically took us about a year to go from 8 of our folks to 8 of their folks. And it was a seamless transition. If you walked into their office, you would think it was a Pivotal office because they do things exactly the way that we set them up, and it is running like a well-oiled machine still. So the best thing you can do is integrate your people that you hire into the existing team as best you possibly can. Some companies aren't going to be able to do that, but that's the best strategy you have for making sure that things keep humming along and don't break down during the transition.
Yeah, that's true, because we've been in a situation where we've hired a number of developers, and when they're handed an existing code base, while it may function perfectly fine, it's not on a framework that they really want to support, or they would have built it otherwise. And under a more of a transition type of scenario, you could probably avoided that. Yeah.
The best advice I can give you is assume that once you end that relationship, once the contract is over and you have your own team, you will never be able to speak to those people again. Because a lot of companies go out of business or the developers leave that company, and even if you reach back out, they're not going to have the expertise. So make sure that you are completely prepared to take on the entire bulk of work, and you don't need to reach back out before you sever that relationship.
Does it help?
Okay, we have one
Use
more
those
question.
guys. Make them help you qualify resources.
Yeah.
Like, expect it. That's exactly.
I do that all the time.
We have clients. We share clients where literally part of the process is to interview with them, and they don't pass Brian's litmus test, then they don't have to go to our client. So they're like that much of a partner, not just in building their mobile app or their architecture, but in helping them hire and make sure that they can not retain them forever.
The problem is we have some of them in Venice, California, some of them in
Yeah. There's Skype, Google Hangout. They can interview from other places. They can help. They can review code. They can look at GitHubs. They should help. You should expect that of them. I mean, I would.
I do remote interviews, and we do remote pairing with candidates and employees all week long. So it can be done.
It'll be a success story for them, and it'll help you. Seriously. Okay.
Hi, my name's Sadie. Last night at the Women Who Start Up panel, one of the panelists said we should blow up the idea of culture fit because it can often be used as, you don't look like me, so I'm not going to hire you. So when we think about trying to introduce diversity and more gender parity, especially in tech jobs, is there anything you guys are doing to think about that as you focus on culture, not
Yes.
being lazy?
I think we have the highest percentage of female developers as any other digital agency in the state. I think at some point we did.
Yes. And you seem to, yeah.
Yeah,
You have
there's
a lot.
an asterisk above that, but at some point we did. And it was hiring the right people for the job. You know, Hani and Kelly, and Jasmine, and, you know, they were the right people that interviewed. A cultural fit would be something different. Like we had a developer who I walked upstairs one day and he was wearing a surgical mask.
What?
A surgical mask. It's okay. He didn't want to get sick, but it was kind of shocking, a little different when a client walks in and sees your developer with a surgical mask. We don't have clicks. Everybody, I mean, we have from, literally a Marine to the most hipster, uber, long beard you can have. But
Right.
What have you done to make it like that? I mean, because there is...
we've created, the culture is a family, and it's not cliques. And there couldn't be more polar opposites than me and my little brother, who is a part of the family. From haircut to literally everything, we couldn't be more opposite. But it's a family culture, it's not a clique culture. So I think that's the separation there. And the family, I mean, they do things amongst themselves. We'll have company ski trips, and they'll organize developer camping trips on their own because they are a family. Yeah.
Is your question is the lens external versus internal?
Well, my question, the way that it was brought up last night is that's a danger of relying on
Okay.
it, like that it's a lazy, like that it can be applied in a lazy way.
Right.
That it's
Yeah,
like,
Yeah, and it's
I
really-
don't really like this person, and really when you dig down into it, it's, well, they don't look like me, they don't,
Yep.
there's sort of a line, like a line
Right.
between I don't want to work with you and it's because we don't have the same work ethic, or I don't want to work with you because you make me uncomfortable because you're from a background of mine. That may be unconscious and
Okay.
unintended, and but I guess my question is, are you guys thinking about that? Is there stuff you're doing?
That's a little clearer now, I think.
Yeah,
And that's a valid question, too, because if it's small companies, there's a lot at risk when you're hiring, and it's like going to be the second person or the seventh person, But also, it's up to the company's discretion. It really is. And hopefully, you have the right people that have a balanced perspective in place that are going to be making those decisions, that can interview. You don't want someone interviewing an applicant that doesn't have an open mind anyway. So hopefully, you have the right people in the right place. And the culture, as much as we've talked about culture today, the culture is something that's pre-existing that an applicant's going to be, assimilating into, hopefully. But it's built on people. The culture of our company is dead silent at night when everybody's not there. It is a foundation that's built on the people that are there. And hopefully you get the right people in the right positions that are making these objective calls with an open perspective. And, a good thing about Colorado is the variety of lifestyle here. There are all types of people, all walks of life, and it's cool, But I think it's a line that the company draws. It's their discretion, and you just got to hope that the right people are in. And I mean, I'm sure an applicant would go to an interview and be like, yeah, I don't want to work there. I mean, I've turned down a job where I was like, I don't like those people. That guy was like a dick to me, So it's kind of a perspective, maybe.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's a beautiful question. Like it really
matters. You're right.
Yeah, no, and it's like we're privy, as in most staffing agencies are, to what our clients' preferences might be in a hire. We can't necessarily use those as qualifiers, but we have a number of clients that have built themselves into a fraternity and it's not working. And they're literally like, we got to get some women in here. And, just to be, I can't just go out there and rule out men who have the talent, but, we have intimate relationships with our clients where they share those things with us. But I think that the umlaut over the O in Motley Crue and the Motley Crue, those clients that have this great balance of complementary people, like I see almost every client wants that. Like they want that full balance. And I can see how in Denver people just harness the heck out of that. They love it when someone is so refreshingly authentic and like real and like, whoa, like, did you just see that? Like, wow. I mean, we have so many unbelievable stories that support this Motley Crue thing that came out of nowhere. And when I have a friend or a mentor who I won't necessarily say his name, but he defines culture. One of his ways, how culture is communicated, is through rituals, legends, and heroes. And culture isn't necessarily a thing, but it's how it's communicated through those things, and through the rituals of our processes, and through the rituals of our day-to-day, and the balance of different people fosters this element of different heroes and different legends and different rituals. And I think it's a beautiful way to look at culture anyway. And we're better with more blended companies, obviously, because I think companies, when I hear people literally saying we're at risk of being like, I don't know, running roughshod as a fraternity, it's just, that's dangerous. I mean, it's their company, it's just not working. Something's going wrong. They haven't hired for culture,
Right.
or they've had the illusion of culture.
So, I pride myself on the fact that in my small office, which is only 15 people, that we have both genders represented. We have a variety of sexual orientations represented. We have a variety of races represented. But I'm lucky enough to have something to aspire to, which is our Toronto office, which just has a huge balance of people. And I've been there and seen what it can look like when you truly have, a 60-40 split men and women. That sort of thing. That really just, changed my perception of what my office was. It's nice that I have a bunch of different representation. I've still got like 8 or 9 straight white guys on my team, right? What excites me is that every single time I bring a new candidate into the office who doesn't fit that mold, those guys are excited about it. So when we have a woman come into interview, everyone is excited that we have someone different in the office, because otherwise we're just kind of inward looking and boring, quite frankly. So we keep it top of mind. I know all of Pivotal does, and we're all aspiring to be better. And I think that the key is to find a company that has that balance and aspire to be like them. It really is top down, in my opinion. Leadership has to believe in that.
I don't know that any of us can just answer that question, though, right? I mean, I think we'd be speculating to say that's what's so beautiful about it.
Part of what I'm asking is how it isn't answerable right now, but if we're all thinking about it, we'll be answering it together.
Yeah.
That was a good question. Thank you all so much for coming. I think this was a success. I did not fall off the stage. You got to hear from 4 exceptional people. Just again, Chris Montigne from Proctor Productions, Keith Roberts from Zenmen, Dave Bacon from BW Bacon, and Brian Rose with Pivotal Labs. Thank you guys so much. You were awesome. Thank you guys all for coming.